Right, so this is the third session of the BGI-25 Virtual Unconference led by the SingularityNET Ambassador program. And this session is about grassroots governance, how communities can use AI tooling to govern themselves. So, just a little bit of introduction for anyone who doesn't know. The SingularityNet Ambassador Programme is a group of people who are aligned with the mission and vision of SingularityNet and want to do what they can to enhance it and support it. But we're not like a typical ambassador program that you often see, that focuses just on content creation alone. Instead, we're much more of a community, and we've developed our own treasury system, our own archives and record keeping system, and our own governance system and governance processes, with a strong focus on open source and decentralized approaches and the use of AI tooling. And like the processes and the tools that we've developed would actually be applicable to any grassroots community, whether it's your parent teachers association or your residents association or your creative writing group or whoever it is. One day, I think they'll probably all be using AI tooling to some extent to help manage and govern themselves. But obviously, as we know, there are always ethics and safety issues around using AI. So the sessions that we've got in this, or the presentations that we've got in this session, look at various aspects of that based on the experiences of some of the work groups in the ambassador program, because that's how we organise. We work through independent, decentralised work groups that kind of do their own thing to contribute towards the mission and vision of SingularityNet. So we will be hearing from, first of all, Stephen Whitenstall from the Archives work group. Then we'll move to Duke Peter from African Guild. Then we'll be hearing from Kizzy from the AI Sandbox stroke think tank, and we'll wrap up with Guillermo Lucero from R&D Guild. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Stephen to make a start.
Okay, let's see if this goes well. Can everyone see that?
Yep,
Oh,
it's not full screen though.
no, I'm just going to do that.
All right.
Um, how about now?
Yeah,
Full
that's
screen.
it.
Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm the first presenter. My name's Stephen Whitterstall. I'm part of the Archives work group, and I'm going to do a short presentation about ethical AI use in community governance. Okay, so why ethics and communication verification matter in AI governance? AI is expanding reach. As Vanny mentioned, AI now shapes decisions potentially across all sorts of communities, from tenants associations and creative collectives to local gardening groups and street WhatsApp networks. As these systems interact with social and cultural spaces, governance must uphold fairness, accountability, and transparency. From AI oversight to collective ethics, ethical governance isn't about controlling technology from above. It's about community participation in AI decision making. Communities should verify and interpret AI insights within their own contexts. This ensures that AI findings serve shared values, not opaque algorithms. So that leads us to the principle of co-verification. Every AI generated insight is subject to a community review and then contextual validation. Human oversight turns data analysis into a collective learning process, not an automated verdict. So transparency and dialogue between the community equals an ethical resilience. So AI should strengthen and transparency and trust, not automate authority. Okay, so what's the role of community record keeping in ethical governance? The core functions: custodian and decision of guidelines. It preserves the reasoning behind actions, not just the outcomes. Transparency and accountability, open access to records, builds a collective trust. Community memory keeps the story of how our norms and values have evolved. Archival integrity ensures information is stored, retrieved, and framed ethically. And why does this matter? Continuity. New members can learn from past discussions and avoid repeating mistakes. Legitimacy. Documented processes show that decisions were made fairly and inclusively. Reflection enables communities to audit their own biases, track progress, and improve governance frameworks. Resilience. When records are decentralized and shared, institutional knowledge survives change. So good governance depends on good memory. Archives are like the conscience of the community. So I'm going to look at now what are the core ethical principles of AI in community governance. They are these ones. I won't list them off by voice. I'll just go directly to the separate slides. So the first one is collaborative and transparent governance. And that requires participatory design and co-ownership. So community-driven rules, metadata, and editorial norms, and shared stewardship. So no single owner of the archive. Transparency and auditable traceability. Every action logged should be logged with a rationale and a version history. Public or semi-public visibility builds long-term trust. Permissioning and role separations. There should be defined access levels, so reader, editor, reviewer, and this prevents the over-centralization of authority. So these principles ensure collective participation, open accountability, and structural balance in how AI-enabled archives or community knowledge bases can evolve. So accountability and ethical oversight, conflict resolution. If they in such an environment, clear and structured dispute resolution process is needed, and you should encourage mediation, peer review, and consensus mechanisms. We should all be aware of our biases and take a long zoom out and look at meta governance. So regular audits for language, omissions, and how we frame ourselves. So the meta reviews will safeguard about systemic inequities. Resilience, succession, and documentation. So backup systems, and this is where open source comes in, and onboarding for continuity. So redundant maintainers. So having more people involved in the maintenance prevents knowledge silos. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right. Safety, context, and responsible automation. So minimal intrusiveness and safety defaults. So we need to limit the degree to which AI
Look up Sneaky Branch on music. Okay.
I'll start again. Minimal intrusiveness and safety defaults. So we need to limit AI-driven edits. That is AI that is without human oversight. And we should default to flagging a manual review of inferred content. So basically what that means is if we do have something that's AI edited, it should be reviewed. Context sensitivity and local norms. So we should honor linguistic, cultural, and regional diversity. And we should avoid imposing universal norms in decentralized communities. So ethical AI will help us adapt safely and sensitively to diverse contexts, so provides guide rails, and local nuance sustains trust and inclusion. So thank you for that. That's the QA-DAO Twitter and YouTube. There is a separate, I did another presentation because I didn't want to do, which is basically taking these principles and translating them to graph algorithms. Vanny, maybe you can paste the link to that in chat.
Yeah, will do. Just give us a sec. Yeah.
And I didn't go into that because I didn't want to get overly technical in this presentation. I just wanted to present an overview of a general approach. So that's it. I'll stop sharing if I can stop sharing now.
Nice one. I mean, before we move to the next little piece, I wonder if anybody's got any immediate questions, particularly if there's anything you didn't understand or you wanted more information on. We could do that first.
Well, thanks, Graham, as well.
All right. Well, can I invite Duke to give his presentation?
Yep. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, Nigerian time. How are you all doing? Just one sec. Let me share my screen. Please confirm you can see my screen. First, confirm you can hear me. I'm not sure you guys can hear me.
We can hear you. See your screen. Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yep. Yeah, we do.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll be presenting on behalf of the African Guild on community first intelligence and African pathways to ethical and of course inclusive AI. And in the course of this, we'll be exploring how Africa's moral imagination can reshape the conversation around global ethics. But first, the question we have to ask is, whose value shapes the machines that shape the people? Right? I'm sure you've probably had an experience, whether on Grok or on ChatGPT, where you have said something and expected a particular output, and ChatGPT gave you a different output from what you expected, or on Grok, and Grok had a way of editing, what you said to sound much more right wing or something. Right. What we have observed on the whole is that AI is rapidly reshaping economies, education, and human relationships, right? And of course, global ethics conversations, as well-meaning as they are at the moment currently dominated by Western perspectives. And the result is that we are creating technology that is connecting us digitally, but unfortunately is isolating us socially. And these technologies all embed the cultural DNA of the creators, if I would call them that, and this cultural DNA determine who benefits and who is left out. Now, the problem with the current framework, just extrapolating more on it, the problem with it at the moment is that it's prioritizing autonomy and individual rights over communal well-being. And this is where the whole African context come in, because you need to understand Africa first, right? Africa is built on the principles of communality, right? So where, for example, you have a house in the West and you call your house a building, or I don't know how you describe it. We call ours compounds, right? Meaning many people live in the same place, right? We have adages that suggest that a child is brought up by everybody at the same time. So our games in Africa, right? In the West, you probably play PS or Xbox or all sorts of video games. Our kind of games here are communal games, right? You'll not be familiar if I say things like Square, Nothing, 1010, but these games bring all of us together. These games, build relationship between people, right? And so what's happening with the evolution of technology, especially with AI, is that it's creating autonomy. Yes, it's creating ease, but with that ease is coming a level of autonomy, right, and individual rights over the communal well-being. And this is what we're trying to this is a perspective, that communality, right? That's the perspective we're trying to engineer or foster with the idea that I will be sharing here today, right? And of course, I hinted a little bit on it while I was speaking earlier. The cultural cost of convenience. AI is making things really easy for us, no doubt about that, right? But with that ease is an opportunity cost. It's that people are losing a sense of relationship, a sense of socialization, a sense of understanding of what the next person goes through, right? And so, as technology replaces connection, right, what's happening is that people are gradually becoming more like machines, and machines are also gradually becoming more like people, right? People are leaning a lot towards, there's a high level of dependency on machines, which we cannot rule out as our evolution continues to occur as a people. We cannot rule out the importance of integrating with technology and AI, as the case may be, right? But the opportunity cost of this is that we're also losing our sense of empathy, right? We're losing our sense of understanding because we don't want to have friction, right? It's because of our depth of autonomy or our level of autonomy, right? And this is robbing us of a bit of our humanity, if I wouldn't even say a lot of our humanity. So what are we proposing, right? The African Guild has a moral imagination that is fixated, or that is stemmed in the principle of Ubuntu. Now, Ubuntu simply means I am because we are, right? It's a philosophy that redefines intelligence through relationships and emphasizes interconnectedness, shared humanity, as well as the importance of collective well-being, right? It's not just about you as a person and how you can excel, as important as your individual excellence is, but it's about how we as a collective can excel, right? It's a much more, it's a philosophy that is grounded in community and interconnectedness more than individuality. And as we consider the concept of AI ethics, right, we are thinking not just for ourselves, but for how the creation, the development, and the deployment of AI tools, AI services affects the next person, right? We heard of a story recently, or I can't quite say how long ago it was, where a guy
You go mute.
that he had with ChatGPT, right? Someone saying something?
No, it's okay. You're back.
Okay. Based on the interaction that he had with ChatGPT, right? But what if we had an empathetical model, that wouldn't just give out inputs based on what you think the person wants to hear, right? That could process inputs and provide, maybe we can create a framework that could process inputs and provide, some level of empathy, as it is generating responses. And this is like I called it, the moral imagination. It's an imagination at this point, right? And we are looking forward to the development of it. So far, so good. What have we done to attempt to translate this imagination into reality? First of all, is that we have held community reflection sessions, where we got people to underscore or explain or just talk about what they understood by trustworthy AI, right? Because what the word trustworthy AI means to, are you guys with me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because what the word trustworthy AI means to a legal luminary, a barrister, for example, is not what it means to a lecturer whose students use AI to cheat in tests, right? So the both of them will be talking about trustworthy AI, but they will be reflecting on it from two different perspectives, right? The lecturer wants students to pass an exams, but at this point is disappointed that every student used AI to sit for their exams or to cheat in their exams, and so the concept of trustworthy to him, it's a demerit. He wouldn't like that. In short, as far as he's concerned, he doesn't want to hear that AI exists. He wants to test the knowledge of students, organically, right? And we had lots of inputs from different people from different walks of life, explaining or defining what they understood, by trustworthy AI, and it was really interesting to experience, right? We hosted a knowledge sharing event, which is the Ubuntu and AI event proper, last year, right? And this event produced tangible results, right? Like we had a conference paper, we had a report from it, educational materials, videos and audios, published articles on Medium, documenting the processes we are taking in our interaction with communities on AI ethics, right? I think we had 4 speakers: Esther Galfalvi, Lilu Rose, Ubio, and John Obidi, right? And the goal of this is that we should, at the end of the day, be able to create a relational framework, right, with insights from all of the work that we're doing. This relational framework should be able to shape prototypes, and ethical design models that will measure how AI fosters empathy, and all of that. Now, this is a pictorial excerpt of the Ubuntu and AI event that we had. It was quite interesting. 2 speakers were physical, while 2 speakers were virtual. And another interesting swing to this that's also helping us achieve our goal of commonality, if I would call it that, is that this event was the first time that members of the ambassador program, of African Extract, especially those in Nigeria, a great deal of them got to meet for the first time, right? And that's this is literally, I think, everybody here, right? We got to see ourselves for the first time. We've been talking to ourselves. So many of us have not seen ourselves. It's likely we can meet at the airport and even engage in a brawl or a fight and not know that this was the person I was talking to yesterday. Some of us got to exchange our real names, our contacts, and we have been in touch with ourselves since then. It just brought a human touch to the work that we have been doing here for the past 1 year and 2 years, as the case of some may be, right? Now, where are we driving to, right, with this intention to create relational frameworks, right? We're trying to test ethics through practice, right? And what we will be doing in the course of this will be, first, to create co-creation workshops in local communities. We have already done one with the Ubuntu and AI, but we're looking forward to having more co-creation workshops in more local communities so that we can have a diverse input, right, or a diverse sample of data, for all of the research we will be doing in the course of this project, right? We're looking forward to also hosting AI literacy programs that are grounded in indigenous languages and values. There's a need to remind people, even we Africans, a lot of us have lost touch of our Africanity, right? We have embraced technology to a very, very large degree, and to some degree toxic, right? To some degree toxic. But yeah, we intend to host AI literacy programs where we can dispel the myths about AI, some fears about AI. Over here in Africa, there are conversations, or there are fears around, AI taking our jobs, AI making everybody redundant, AI ruling the world. There's so many ideologies and so many philosophies just thrown around and all that. Now, we intend to host AI literacy programs that will dispel these myths, in indigenous language as well as in English, and furthermore, develop more case studies where participants, don't forget, we already had one, where participants defined what they understood by trustworthy AI. We would like to meet these same participants after these literacy programs, after a period of engagement with them, meet some of them and get them to redefine now with better knowledge, with exposure, with education, let's hear their perspective again on fairness, bias, trust, and especially as it aligns with their cultural values and upholds the importance of AI, and the advancement of technology. The end goal is that we get to enhance local resonance with AI evolution. We don't have so many people fighting it. Religious institutions currently are fighting it because they believe that AI is here to, replace God. So many things. I'm sure you guys don't even want to hear it. Cultural institutions are resentful a bit towards the adoption of AI, right? But if we can pull this off efficiently and effectively, we can have a situation where we have local resonance with AI evolution rather. Also, part of our end goal is to create prototype frameworks for ethical governance adaptable across context. Now, we do not claim to know everything. As far as we know, this is all an experiment. We may just know our next step and may not be able to see the entire 90 yards, right? So we also have questions, despite the fact that, we're in the field, we're engaging, we're making efforts to try to do a thing or the other. We also have questions. One of them is, what would it mean to design AI systems that are accountable to relationships instead of algorithms, right? I'm sure you're tired of telling ChatGPT what to do, and it turns around and tells you what to do. I've had that experience countless times, and I'm like, no, just edit, check for syntax, check for this. Do not alter the content of my post of my write-up, and it gives me an output that totally alters the context of my output because of how political maybe that particular post was leaning towards, or that particular input was leaning towards. So what would it mean to design AI systems that are accountable to relationships instead of algorithms? Also, how can the African Guild be more involved in AI safety and ethics conversations? If you have an idea, please feel free to share with us. Please feel free to let us know, and we're more than open to considering and implementing where necessary. And finally, what cross-guild or external collaborations can turn these ideas into open source frameworks and policy tools, right? We don't just want to end this at the level of conversations and ideation, and or at a guild level. We don't have all the resources in the program or in the guild to implement this or take this to the end of the earth as it deserves to be, right? So if you have ideas on what cross-guild or external collaborations can turn these ideas into open source frameworks and policy tools, by all means, please do well to let us know. Our message is that the world doesn't just need African data. Of course, we know in Africa we have data, we have a market, right? We have a growing population of young people, and so Africa is the future of the world, right? But this is not all that Africa represents. We also need African ethics, and more so, the community first model restore human connection in machine design. We are thinking of integration, right, and not separation. We're thinking of integration and not isolation, right? And then I would like to close with a quote from the prolific Chinua Achebe, who said that a man who calls his kinsmen to a feast does not do so to save them from starving. They all have food in their homes. When we gather together in the moonlit village ground, it is not because of the moon. Every man can see it in his own compound. We come together because it is good for kinsmen to come together. I hope it has been a wonderful short session. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, and do enjoy the rest of the UN conference. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Duke. That was a really illuminating and interesting presentation. I will ask if anybody's got an immediate question for Duke that you'd like to raise, but if not, I'm thinking we'll go straight to the next presentation. Oh, I can see something in chat. Just a sec. Oh, perfect ending. It certainly was. All right, well, let me call now on Kizzy to give his... Oh, no, sorry, I do see a hand up. Zainab, go for it.
Okay, thank you very much, Vani. Thank you, Duke, for the wonderful presentation. So, my name is Zainab. I am from the northern part of Nigeria. And when I saw your wonderful presentation, I just felt so about it. I was so excited about it. I was so happy because I've been MIA for a long time, and seeing this coming to life made me so excited. So one thing that stood out for me is the aspect of localizing the AI that you mentioned. This is something that I have a strong background and strong experience in, and I don't know. I'm just returning after like 4 months, so I don't know how I can step in and how I can support moving on. So I even dropped a message to Valley just to catch up on all of that. I don't know whether you've seen it. So I just said, let me just talk now since there's an opportunity. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zainab. So lovely to hear that feedback from you. And by all means, we're open to having everyone who's interested in joining us on this project come on board. So we can always talk about that maybe after now. Are you on Discord?
Sure, I am. Yes.
Okay, please. So please let's get a link up. We'll definitely get to talk about this. We're planning another iteration of we're planning an event for November in Abuja. So Abuja is central. It's close to,
Yes.
I don't know what part of the north you are in. So
I mean, Kaduna is just like 2 to 3 hours drive.
interesting. Or you can even
Yeah.
use the railway. I think the railway is shorter.
Yes, yes, yes.
Cool. So we have another event coming up in November, and I could run you through the details of that on Discord.
All right then. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Zena.
Oh.
Yeah, Guillermo, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Duke, no, just want to share some thoughts that your presentation just triggered me. You know, I'm from South America. We have been colonized, deeply colonized. This kind of process and mindset that you have with your cultural origins is so strong, man. That deeply inspiring to see you guys push for it. So I think we have a lot to learn in this regard. So thank you for sharing that, and good to see you back with the ambassador's family and putting your all this experience you guys have been doing with the African Guild on the table on this conference. Thank you for that too.
Thank you very much, Guillermo, and good to be back too.
Oh, great. We're making some connections. This is really cool. All right, well, let's head on to the next presentation from Kizzy about a AI agent approach called EthosGuard. Over to you, Kizzy.
All right, guys, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, but your screen sharing is just loading. There we are. There it is.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, all good. So, good everyone. I'm Lord Kizzy from the AI Sandbox think tank work group, and I'll be going through the AI agent for governance and how the ethical concerns and safety around it. For this, I'll be using one of the topics we've looked at previously, one of the AI agents we are currently ideating upon, which is the EthosGuard, which is an AI agent for AI ethics and governance advisory agent. So, moving forward, now the purpose of this AI agent itself is to have an intelligent, always-on governance companion for the ambassador program, guiding contributors towards an ethical, fair, and transparent decision making. Now, the commissions for the agent itself is to first of all have the governance guide. There's a way to decode decision. Sorry, this one is drawing on the screen. To decode decision structures and rules. Also, an ethical assistant to assess fairness, inclusivity, and decentralization. Also, the value educator to kind of explain core principles and mentor individuals or contributors within the program, and engagement board to kind of increase engagement and participation itself. Then one of the other features is the ethics scoring engine to analyze proposals for ethical alignment. Now the goal here is to make centralized governance itself. Sorry. Yeah, to make decentralized governance more understandable, ethical aligned, and more inclusive without replacing human judgment. So moving forward, now this agent is built on some ethical principles, the core ethical principles, and first of it is decentralization. It prevents power concentrations by distributing decision-making authority across the community. One of the things that we have in this program, or one of the core principles of the ambassador program, or not just the ambassador program, SingularityNET as a whole, is decentralization. There is no central authority of power, and we plan on sticking to the cost principle itself. Also, in terms of fairness and transparency, ensures equitable treatment and challenges systematic biases in AI-mediated decisions, and also makes processes and decisions and rationales more visible and understandable to everyone. So one thing we need to understand is that whenever we're making a decision, we actually need to understand what we're deciding upon, the context, and all the necessary information around this. And this makes it kind of understandable and fair and transparent to decide upon. So moving forward, inclusivity. Now, this is a way whereby everyone actually has to take part in decision making. It's not just tied to high ranked individuals, or if I said on our program, we have what we call core contributors. So in this, we need to make it inclusive to everyone. All voices are heard. I think when I came to the program, I think Tommy always mentioned that wherever you are, you can speak up. We will always listen to you, even if you're just a newcomer. So all voices are heard, and no one is being left out. So moving forward, now the ethical concerns. So this is divided into three parts: the ethical concerns, the description, and the critical risks itself. So the first of it is automated ethical judgment. Now, this undermines human accountability. Ethical choices needs deliberation and not computation. Now, the risks involved here is delegating moral evaluation to an algorithm. Risks force authority, because right now, the AI that we have right now, I think we're still at the stage of narrow AI. We haven't fully advanced into AGI. So AI right now lacks genuine moral reasoning. So instead of we actually delegating decision making to AI algorithm, is a very critical risk right now at this stage. Moving forward, we have biases and normativity. Now, scoring systems can reproduce hidden biases from training data or developer assumptions. This can lead to discretionary or unfair governance outcomes. Now, one thing that we know or from most of these LLM chatbots is that they provide results based on the data which they are being fed. So this can actually give an hidden bias based on the developer's data or the developer's assumptions, the data that it's been trained with, which is not in a way a fair governance outcome. So moving forward, epistemic legitimacy. The agent interprets values statistically, not socially. It models norms, it doesn't understand them. Now, the risks involved here is the risk shallow ethics that miss lived experiences. Now, one thing that we have right now is that AI agents in the space haven't actually lived these experiences which they actually provide. They just provide norms that they don't actually understand what it is or what it's all about, because they haven't actually lived the experience. They don't know how it feels to be in that scenario. It's just they only provide based on the data being fed to it. So this is the risk itself when delegating decision making to AI agents. So moving forward, the value drift and context loss. Now, community norms tend to evolve faster than AI updates, which is very true. Ethical misalignment over time and outdated guidance. These are the risks that it causes. So most of the times, most of these LLM chatbots or AI models are being updated maybe after 6 months, quarterly, depending. So by that time, humans tend to have evolved. Like if you look at the ambassador program, we basically almost have a different structure of governance almost every quarter. We tend to experiment every quarter, we tend to evolve. So if we were to delegate decision making to an AI agent itself, we would kind of have misalignment, ethical misalignment, because it might still be behind in terms of values that we're currently using in the program. So that's another risk. Another risk that is involved is privacy risks. Integrating with services like Discord, the work GitHub might share sensitive information or data, and this is a key ethical concern, which data privacy. How is data being secured? How is it should sensitive information be shared? How do we protect that? So the risk involved is the breach of confidentiality in sense, which we all know that is something that we need to avoid. Another concern itself is over-reliance and automation creep. So users might actually accept AI judgment uncritically due to convenience or objectivity biases. And this creates a persuaded governance ruled by algorithmic mediation. So this is what we're trying to avoid because you cannot delegate a decision based on the outputs or outcome presented by the agent itself. It's meant to assist rather than decide for you. But due to convenience and objectivity bias, humans tend to actually do this. And it's a concern that we need to rectify. So also we have the ethical transparency. Now, if the scoring criteria are opaque, users cannot contest or understand decisions. It weakens democratic legitimacy. And right now, we need to understand what you're deciding upon. Most of the times, people just decide based on the data that, or let's say, whatever outcomes is provided by the agent itself or by the tool itself. You need to understand what are you deciding upon, what are the contexts around it. Is this my decision the right one? So these are questions that only you can answer. Moving forward, we go to the possible solutions or the ethical safeguards for this. So we look at the concerns and we look at the recommended solutions. Now, AI agents as an ethical advisor and not a judge. Now we need to enforce humans in the loop of the design. Now, all assessments require human deliberation and consent. Every assessment we're going to do, or every result presented by this AI algorithm would require human deliberation and consent before it's actually approved. We need to have the final say on every result provided by the agent or basically AI agents and governance. Because not just EthosGuard, but this is just a point of reference going forward. Um, Bias and accountability, open source audit of datasets and decision criteria require community review of ethic weights. So this also is also similar to what I previously said. The committee actually needs to review the ethical weights based on the outcome presented itself. It needs to be this general review by the community. Explainability and justification. Each recommendation must cite the ethical framework or committee documents that informs it. So there needs to be this citation based on the results gotten from the AI agent itself, so that users can actually go over it and go over the source document to see where this data was actually gotten from, or just to provide more context to the outcomes itself or the outputs itself from this AI algorithm. So there needs to be this citation of the source documents itself. Dynamic alignment. Now, schedule quarterly updates tiered to retrospective and governance changes. So there needs to be an update. It can be quarterly, it can be monthly, but depending, there needs to be an update tiered to the retrospective sessions that we've had and the governance changes within the program itself. That way, the AI becomes kind of adaptive to what we are currently doing rather than reminiscing on the previous values. So privacy protection. Now they need to apply data minimization, encryption, and explicit user consent for cross-platform links. Now, which previously we were looking at data privacy. How do we solve the data privacy? So once the data itself is encrypted, it becomes inaccessible for people outside the program to actually view or access. And another thing itself is that there need to be the consent, user consent from the community before taking all these steps. So if we're going to have a cross integration with multiple platforms, community needs to be involved and aware of the risks involved before taking the decision itself. So also contestable contestability channels, whereby we are allowed to discuss or dispute AI agent assessments and propose counter arguments. So, as I said previously, the result or the outputs of these AI agents are not the final decision. They are just a guide. And in that sense, it can be wrong. There should be a channel whereby we have to kind of go over these results and see how we can propose counter arguments around it. So, moving forward, EthosGuard contribution to the better world, to AI better world. We're going to look at this in different areas, contributions and ethical benefits. So, first of all, is ethical literacy. Now, this promotes shared understanding, fairness, consent, and decentralization. Now, the ethical benefit itself is that it strengthens moral agency within governance. If everyone can understand what the decisions are about, what we are, ensure that everything is all fair and it's all decentralized. This improves the moral agency within governance itself. Then education and awareness, it teaches values, onboarding ethics, and governance literacy. That way, this builds ethical culture and informed participation. Everyone knows, everyone understands the onboarding ethics, ethics around decisions or governance ethics. And that way, we are well informed when participating in governance. So transparency and accountability visualizes treasury, consent rounds, and contributor eligibility. Now, the ethical benefit here is that it prevents centralization and builds trust with legitimacy. Now, on that, but participatory ethics now involves members in defining and updating values. This increases inclusion and collective ownership. When we have a room whereby everyone's thoughts and opinions are heard, people tend to actively participate in governance. People tend to say their minds and view their opinions because they believe that it's going to be heard, it's going to be listened to. So also continuous reflection. Now, this is where we use retrospectives for ethical improvements. That way, it becomes adaptive and we're evolving AI ethics itself based on lived experiences. Moving forward, safety and human oversight ensures AI outputs are contestable and not final. Now, this kind of protects against automation of moral reasoning. So I said, the outputs given here are contestable and not the final decisions. You as the individual gives the final decision. You as the individual has the final say. So this is just like a guidance itself rather than defining or taking decisions for you, dedicating decisions for you. So now the broader ethical impact and value contextualization, how EthosGuard understands community values. So the first framework is through embedded framework. This dataset is going to be trained based on the ambassador program's governance documents, the SNS vision, and the DAO's ethics guidelines. That way, it kind of has information on all our previous or past governance iterations. It's all the necessary information being fed to it itself. So it's going to be trained with all of these necessary documents. In a way, it kind of lives the experiences itself. So contextual layer, it incorporates meeting archives, consent processes, and budget histories, grounding the responses in lived community data. Participatory alignments, community feedback loops continuously, and then we calibrate the ethical rule sets. Transparent reasoning, each recommendation references the specific governance or ethical value involved. Sorry, e.g., violates this decentralization principle. Now, the human governance mediation, all ethical scoring is reviewed by ambassadors, and the AI agent only supports the eventual. As I said previously, the AI agent doesn't decide what is. It only present the results, and those results are going to be reviewed by ambassadors or co-contributors who are going to actually take the final decision itself. So the result here is that EthosGuard does not decide ethics. It amplifies ethical awareness within the community. So in summary, EthosGuard serves as a bridge between AI governance, human ethics, ensuring that contributors act with awareness, fairness, and transparency. By education, ethical scoring, and participatory guidance, it helps create an ecosystem, an AI ecosystem that is beneficial by aligning actions with long-term human and community values through participatory learning and continuous human alignment loop. Now, it also does this by creating a safer AI economy through preventing unethical and centralized misuse of governance systems. And it is more inclusive by encouraging all members and not just co-contributors to engage in meaningful ethical decision making. So this is where we come to the end of the slideshow. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kizzy. That was brilliant. Yeah, a really thorough analysis of the ethics issues for communities, I think. Like this tooling that you're talking about, EthosGuard, and the governance dashboard that we're about to hear about from Guillermo in a minute, they all need to be contextualized to suit the community that they're serving, whether that's the ambassador program community or any other community that might want to use these approaches. And our records and our archives and our knowledge graphs are part of that. And so are our various like lived experiences of marginalization, colonization, exclusion. They're all fuel to that fire, and they all add to this process of participatory alignment. It's never, done and dusted. It's always in flux and in evolution, isn't it? So we can never say, right, that's it. Our AI tool is contextualized. It's always a constant process of the community in a participatory way being able to align it with its needs. Yeah, so I want to go over, unless anybody's got any comments or questions that they'd like to raise for Kizzy. Like immediately, obviously, we'll have others. Okay, well, in that case, I'd like to invite Guillermo to come and share his presentation, which is looking at the governance dashboard that has been developed and the AI tooling that goes along with it.
Hey there, Vani. Thank you for that. PC, great stuff. So what are we going to be doing now is sharing a real world project, something that is already being, let's say, built as the foundation for this kind of agents that Kizzy was sharing with you guys. So I'm going to share, I put some slides together, but definitely I don't want to go too long on it. So probably good to have it on the screen while we are presenting this. Get it there. So what are we trying to achieve here? We have been developing with the R&D Guild within the Ambassador program. We call it a dashboard because it's the technical, let's say, language for what it is a landing page, definitely a navigation description. But what we have been building is a framework where we can interact with these agents, where these agents will start to interact with these data sets that Kisu was sharing with you guys. So the main challenges we find while building this were not only the ethical, but also the architectural design for what it is a system prompt, okay? So how we create a personality for agents like Sarah, the name we put for the moment to our ethical agent that is helping us to govern in this already a practical world tool. And how important it is to understand, probably I'm going to repeat some of Kiss's words, that the AI assistance for decision-making is here to share knowledge, point us in the right direction in regards of sustainability. Because as I mentioned before several times, I'm more concerned about the human bias than the AI bias, because the AI bias come from us. So from ideologies instead of ideas, from all these aspects that have taken us here till today's situation around the world, where governance is being colonized and populated by interests. So what we have been trying to do in our framework, in our ambassador program, self-organized work groups and guilds, is to build first the different elements that say that's the architecture behind the hood, okay? Where we have a very specific target in regards of our governance system, okay? We go through a consent process that, again, the objective of the consent process is to evolve ideas as a community, not to vote for a yes or a no, okay? So we build that context for us human with AI assistance and AI agents reach the best decision making. I think that there have been a big shift in regards of how we design these frameworks, okay? So I'm going to share with you guys something that I have been, this is really cool stuff that is out there, and is how we are designing the tool so we can have a better use of these AI assistant agents, okay? Because you can not only have one, an ethical, you can have a multi-agent, okay? We have built a framework that interacts with our treasury, with our objectives, KIPs, output, outcomes, and we see on screen now the way we are designing this in regards of the engineering on the versus the prompt engineer versus the context engineer. That is the one we are using, okay? So on your left, you have an actual system prompt that works with a user using a prompt, a question, a query, and it will work with the training elements and give a response. What we are building is a context system engineering. So we are integrating all these elements on from our governance into this architecture. So we have our knowledge base built by the knowledge or the process guild led by Thibaut. We have the 2 years of summaries and archival with our history track from the ambassadors. And all of those become the documents, tools that we can integrate, knowledge graph, etc. Then comes the next step on our development, that is the memory. And that will come with compute power that is going to be shared with us from the ASIC Cloud, led by Kudos and Luke and Oliver and all the team. We have already reached out to them. So this is the next step. That way, we build a context for AI assistant, AI agents, have the knowledge to guide us in the right direction. as I mentioned before. So I'm going to share now a little bit of what we have already, because again, we are working with some inspirations. So the concept and the idea comes from Ben Gertzel, leader of SingularityNET, and Gabriel Montes. They co-write both the Conscious Explosion, okay, their last book, and they have a whole chapter on governance AI assistant. And definitely, again, not leading us, but collaboration between humans and AI is the vision and mission within our ecosystem. So what you guys see, it's a framework where our assistant is going to be touching bases with all this, what we call in system design endpoints, okay? Every single of these items you see on our navigation becomes an endpoint for our AI assistant or agent interact with, okay? So let's go to one of the, let's say, proposals in our consent process. So all of the elements you see here are inserts and input data sets where our agents are going to be reaching out to get and gather information. And so you guys see outcomes, you guys see a lot of information, okay? You have links, you have treasure information, okay? And then you have one of the most important aspects of this framework is the human aspect. This is where agents learn about us, how we interact, okay? So not only we are thinking, or let's say we have the visualization of how we see these agents that we are going to be building, we already are, not in a theoretical aspect, the community of SingularityNET is already building a governance framework and interacted with agents towards our decision making. There was an interesting discussion, and probably you guys can jump in and we can make an open discussion, because the ethical aspects of this design were the most important, or let's say challenging aspects of building this as a community. You know, this is so the governance system, it came from a governance work group, the process and treasury. So we are, through this tooling, we are integrating all of this as a governance in our communities. So this is a community, let's say, we are building as a community. So when we are going now on the next step on this ethics, on this is owned by the community, we are going to dive deep in this, the ethical aspects of the agent, okay? So, and also not only because it's an open source and we can, as Vani was saying earlier, other communities can start using our framework and redesigning and educating their agents within their context. But also we have our discussions because we are already building. So we are kind of pioneering in this aspect. And this triggered a pretty critical discussions in regards of, for example, we can know what one of our community members' queries are with our agent. We want that information. We want that information to be disclosed. So privacy issues, ethical issues. But I think the focus of our development have been sustainability. Sustainability of a system. A community is a system that needs to be sustainable. So that's when education is important, efficiency in the use of resources is important, and mainly collaboration. So the most strongest systems are the ones that they collaborate. You can see this in nature. It's a perfect example. Or you can see this in sports. The teams that really transcend are the ones that learn how to collaborate. That doesn't mean they need to be all friends and go to have dinner all together. The moment of collaboration, it's crucial for sustainability. So that's what we have been working on. I don't want to go too deep because we have a lot of already discussions in our town halls and in our daily meetings, weekly meetings. So probably a good moment to open the discussion to the floor, because we already with Vani, we have been discussing a lot while building this tool together. Also with Stephen, that he's going to help us with the open source license and all of those aspects. And also with the tooling and integrating knowledge graph to this framework. But yeah, the challenge have been that ethical development, building fast is a problem. Trying to achieve deadlines, it's a problem. But the thing that we have been doing is building modular with really small resources, and we have challenged ourselves on this. And we have already an iteration from our governance where, just to point out one, let's say, output, it's that we have 31 core contributors engaging consent, and the AI assistant, Sarah, our agent, that is helping us to governance, in this case with a very short system prompt, without the library knowledge and all of this, still because we need compute power for that, it has more than 750 queries from our community members. And those are big numbers in regards of a pilot. So we are very proud of what we have been building, but looking forward really to go to the next phase. And to keep building this all together. So all the knowledge from the other work groups is now when it really comes handy in place too. That now that we have the framework, we're going to start imputing all that knowledge. And let's see where we are in the next quarter.
Basically, I was going to, Guillermo was asking me what I was going to ask, and basically, I was asking what you were going to ask. Actually, is what we have in common, Vani. Yeah, and a lot. I just to reiterate, I just said a lot of the presentations today were very different, and that was very valuable. But they had a lot in common as well. In that we all have a shared community, and we have shared concerns about having a human control over the technology. But I think it's really important actually that we do have separate work groups as well, because we can then each focus on things that have real difference and real emphasis. So we don't have a kind of monolithic approach. And that means that, Guillermo, we can then contrast different approaches, like the framework that you're building, for example, is very much a prompt orientated approach that's taking a context. My approach, or the approach in the archive, is to look at the data and then to see what patterns are in the data, and then to create the objective there is to create questions out of that data. Another approach from other work groups might be to say, well, what are our ethical values? How do we feel about AI, and how should we express that? And those are all valid. They're all kind of complementary in a way. They kind of inform each other. So it's really important that not one voice dominates, that there are very separate ideation going on, very separate experimentation going on, so that you can then contrast each approach with each other. So that's what I was going to say. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we have been doing. So it's really, and now it's when the 2 years of work from all the work groups comes to work in one place. We did challenge ourselves because of the deadline, because of the really small amount of resources of building this, to integrate the AI agent in this situation, just to get it moving, and also this discussion going on, because this is the best way to build modular, is to test drive the small modules that you build. Because if you build with, abundancy can be a pain. And it happens to a lot of developers that, okay, let's try this. 3 months dropped. Let's try this. We know it ourselves because, we know other ecosystems and we know our own ecosystem. So it was the first discussion why we get the other resources. We can't do this without compute. ACID Cloud is coming very handy. Memory, yes, we need it. And yes, all these elements of our history, of our community from the archive. What you guys have been doing is crucial because you have been building the data sets properly that we can train. If we don't have that, we don't have nothing. AI ethics, we have been learning a lot from the work group, from all the experiences, but I think it was a good thing that we integrated the agent in this iteration because the other aspects of building today is you can build very fast. So the most important aspect today of building is track records and iterations. And our test drive was really effective.
Yeah, I think it's good that you're working, in a way, it's good that you're working on prompt engineering and agent, taking agents and then relating that to the context.
Yeah, context.
But our focus is much more on auditability, if you like.
Right.
And if you ever, do you know Patrick Tobler? He was he started a company called NKM in Cardano, and he's now created a Cardano system called Machino, I think it's called, which is a platform that provides AI agents, but the AI agents are auditable on the blockchain. Yeah. Right. So what would be nice to do, let's say you created a prompt that was a particular question, let's say, it could be a very discrete question, like that asks a question. It'd be good if you could audit that, because that prompt itself becomes a data object. Okay, so it becomes
exactly.
It's not passive. It is its own context.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that could create what Patrick Tobler is doing. He's taking an agent like that and then creating a hash for it. So you can then say, apply that to some data, right, and then you can say, oh, right, we have an audit trail for that. Okay. So let's say the prompt produces some unexpected results. Yeah. It says, oh, we didn't expect that. Then you can look back and then maybe roll that back. And then, yeah, do you see what I mean? So this is a similar approach to our graph approach in archive, where what we do is what we're working towards is that you look at the data that you have, you look at who you are. So if you think of on one level, we are our meeting records, our documents and all that. And then you look for patterns in that data, right? This is before you do prompts. And then when you look at those patterns, let's say you see, oh, we're finding out there's a lot of discussion about this subject, for example, could be any subject. And then you say, oh, that's obviously a significant piece of data in our community. And then that becomes, we all agree that that is significant. Once we agree that, it then becomes a prompt. It becomes a data object. It becomes a valid representation of our own concerns. That's what we should be aiming for bottom up.
Yeah. The thing is also, Steven, that also building as a community, that is what we are doing, is that you know him. I didn't know him. And that's when we already have this test drive and a basic framework and understanding what worked and what didn't work, we're going to be able to, because now we have another challenge that is building with really smaller resources than we have a previous iteration. Okay, so now we need to make a collective decision on features versus system, because we tried already the prompt without the knowledge. The knowledge is from this dynamic. You have a dynamic prompt built within the context, so we can look for patterns, also integrating tools like knowledge graph. And the other thing that we need to and must this kind of tooling have is blockchain, on-chain register and track record. We still don't have that because I can go into the database and change the result of and that has been also a challenge to learn with very small and build with very small amount of resources. But on-chain dynamic workflow of information and audit and certify the tool and each one of the iterations should be also one of the aspects that the kind of things have, no? Agents, reputation, all the things that we are building with through the ecosystem. Now is when we are a community, we are test driving this, that we have a pilot. Probably there's a lot of things going on, but this ambassador program was able to achieve with this governance, consent, community, self-governance thing is pretty unique. And this is, yeah, I'm assuming, we know them. And also the agents, we also validated that our ASI stack is very strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another aspect. What intrigues me about that is well, first of all, the blockchain element. Yeah. And then there's the auditability, but I don't want to, that'd be good to have other people come into the conversation a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to backtrack a little bit to during the presentations. Stephen's point on that whole meta-governance approach and communities kind of auditing their own biases. And then Kizzy raised the danger of values drift and, the importance of maintaining context and the danger of context loss. And I'm just thinking, well, bias is inevitable, isn't it? There's no such thing as neutrality, I don't believe anyway. And change is inevitable too. Your governance processes will change, and that's good. Otherwise, you're dead. But kind of recognizing, auditing, and kind of questioning your own biases and your own processes as a community is the important thing. So maybe your knowledge graphs and your archives can enable you as a community to see yourself from a distance and get that sense of what your biases might be. And, a bias might not always be bad. If you've got a bias towards open source, that's a good thing.
That's good. That's a good one.
But what I'm saying is that the other strand to that is what Duke was talking about, which is kind of rooted in lived experience, and that's another way that you audit your processes and you audit your kind of biases. You look at whether it makes sense from your lived experience. So I'm just trying to puzzle out how we look at the things we're learning and start thinking about how maybe other communities might use them. Maybe even communities that are less Web3 based. We do some of our auditing with things like retrospectives and stuff, as people have mentioned, but not every community is going to do that. Maybe record keeping is part of it, and maybe a focus on lived experience is part of it.
Was it Duke who was talking about lived experience?
Yeah.
I found that very striking, actually, because it poses the question of, who are we? How we expressing ourselves in different ways, in different communities, in different parts of the world as well, and how do we take part in the technology? We can't just be passive, So. I mean, I thought your presentation was very fascinating, Duke.
Yeah, same on my end, and it really changed our governance in this iteration. No, having a tool like this, it changed our whole schedule, a way to approach our reporting. So now context is the next one. But yeah, well. But Duke, you were about to add something to what Stephen said.
Oh, okay. I was just about to say thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
No, you're welcome. I mean, if you could expand on anything, because I thought what you were expressing about the values of a particular community, I mean, which is, you're talking about the community in Africa, and the contrast between individualism in the West, let's say, for the sake of argument, and different maybe collective or communitarian values in Africa. And that's an example of different paradigms, different patterns of societies and how they so different kinds of communities. It's not like there's one kind. So that really presents an interesting challenge in the sense of how do you create a community AI, if you like, that is flexible enough that it is able to accommodate, say, African communities or South American communities or Western communities.
Oh yeah, really interesting point of view, and of course that's also what we're trying to deconstruct with this entire process because we don't even know how. I mean, recently I was in China, and one of the things that struck me while there was the fact that they had mastered the art of contactless living. So you can almost do everything without needing to talk to someone. And I mean, it was really striking for me because Asia is a lot like Africa in many regards, right? They still have really strong cultural institutions, values. They have a very strong value system and all of that. So it got me thinking while I was there before leaving, how do they have such an almost contactless society, right? From their mode of payments. I mean, there are shops that we walked into that you could just go buy your thing and leave. There was no attendance, there was nothing. Now, this may sound naive, but this is not the experience in Africa, for example. So it got me to thinking about high trust and low trust, right? High trust societies and low trust societies. Could it be possible that this is happening over there because it's a high trust society? Or could it be possible that they just have such high level of efficiency and what have you? But yeah,
Another way of looking at that, I think that's
okay.
I think that's a really fascinating point, Duke. And another way of looking at it might be trust that is enforced and trust that it is voluntary. Okay. You think of also, there's also the other side, the authoritarian angle to digital ID, let's say, and contactless payments. In China
Mm,
it's happening in the UK as well, where it's increasingly becoming difficult to use things like cash, you know,
yeah,
things that, and there's a freedom aspect there that will impact communities as well, by the way. Okay, the way that you would describe in African communities, like that kind of Ubuntu value, how will that be
yeah,
impacted by a universal value, if you like, of ID, if you like, identification or commerce, which is what's happened in China particularly. You're right that they still seem to maintain their cultural values in a sense, but what kind of maintenance is it? Is it a kind of controlled maintenance? Like if you take any culture or any region, it would be misleading to say it's only one culture, wouldn't it? You would say there's many different variations in the culture, many different people who would disagree with each other. And it's that difference and dissent, in my view, which creates the richness of a culture. Yeah. Which can be
yeah,
undermined by systems that are too monolithic or a system that you have to use that you cannot not use, which is what's
yeah,
happened in China, do you see?
yeah,
So, and this, when it
it-
comes to AI, it becomes again the systems that we're developing in our ambassadors program that are different approaches to it. That makes
yeah,
that fascinating because we're each approaching it in different ways, and I think that's really important. So.
yeah. I totally agree with you. I mean, my observation was that it was forced, right? My observation was that it was forced, and then so what I was thinking was if Um, was there a possibility where, please pardon my train of thought because this can sound really weird, but is there a possibility where we can create an AI model that is geographically aware. So, for example, just the way VPNs work, right? Same thing, but then the AI model just what's it called? Interacts with people in Africa differently from the way it interacts with people in the West, because I don't think it's going to be possible to bring everybody under a universal umbrella. I don't think that's going to be possible, because that would also be a form of reverse colonization, right? So we are talking about the fact that we are being we're digitally colonized by Western values. Now, if we do the same thing with Ubuntu, so it's also going to be a form of reverse colonization, and I don't think it's going to work, right? What has happened in the West has happened. The West has evolved. I mean, I want to believe that there was a time in history where the West was as integrated culturally as we are in Africa, right?
It reminds me
There
of,
probably was a
yeah,
please go on.
It reminds me of discussions that were had in Cardano, say 2 years ago, when the constitution committees were discussing how Cardano should be run, and it was very much assumed there's very much an American influence that it should be run on a constitutional angle, and this was very in steep contrast to, say, the African town hall in Cardano, which had a very different way of viewing the world. And I thought at that time, I mean, a lot of people who joined blockchain early on, like maybe 2021 or so, we hoped that it would create an economic system that would be neutral. It'd be like you could then plug in any system on top of it. Yeah. So you could say, oh, here's an African system, here's a South American, here's our culture, here's another culture, and not say it has to be one culture. Now, moving on from blockchain, we're now in AI. We face the same challenge. The danger is, and we get this in models. If you go to ChatGPT or whatever, and everyone knows this, it'll have its own values. It's trained in certain ethical outlooks or certain philosophical systems and so on. Yeah. So you don't really control how you don't control its culture. Its culture is determined to you. So as you described it, Duke, I think in your presentation very well, and also in the last presentation as well. Was it Kizzy? I think doing the last presentation. You emphasised very well the importance of retaining your culture, retaining the community's perspective. Okay, and then and the way to do that is to, in my view, is to develop representations of ourselves digitally. So we have to. That's what we have to work on. That's why I think that's what we are working on actually.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on that one. Definitely. And that's one of the powerful things that we are doing here is that we are building as a community. So we are the ones that are making the decisions. We are not relying on Western, Eastern. This is a kind of, because it is a global community, the one we are representing. So it's our responsibility to do that properly. So probably I don't know if geolocation, but definitely about the cultures that we are representing here. That's why one of the things that we try to, let's say, trigger on the collaborators to fill their profile. So we have that background, and then we can understand which communities globally are represented in our program, and that way we can pay attention to that, because the objective is not to find no IP location, but to understand who is represented, so we can educate and train and teach our AI agents, assistants into our backgrounds. I can drop the Martín Fierro, the José Hernández literature, Cervantes, our originals, Indians, all cultures into this, how they teach, they educate, they have communities, they transact commerce, and that's our history. So that probably is gonna not always represent 100% of us, but definitely is something that we have because we are building this. Yeah, that and also the thing is that triggering the human context through comments, that's why we push dialogue into our governance. It was not only about what the AI can say from this context or these materials or this knowledge graph or this and that. Also, imputing and using our dialogues as a data set, the dialogue exchange in our proposals, we thought it was the way we can impute the human aspect of it. And sometimes we interact in this kind of governance or decision making with our context when we communicate, when we speak. So that's embedded already in the way we engage as a community.
Yeah, I just want to raise some or bring in something from some of the other sessions earlier on that we've had, and talking about this idea of using tools in a way that fits our context. And I think sometimes in these Web3 international communities, we tend to focus a little bit sort of on language and country of origin. So just to mention that there are a whole load of other layers of who you are and who your culture and your context is. I mean, for instance, in the first session today, there was a lot of talk about the whole question of being a woman in these spaces, and kind of, women's culture and feminist culture have historically worked in a decentralized way for decades. A lot of people think decentralization was invented for Web3, and it really, really wasn't. That ethos is quite an old one, really. And, there's also been questions raised about the differences in culture that happen when you have a disability, or differences in sexuality, or differences in whether you are rural or urban. And these all contribute in, a sort of intersectional, multi-layered way to who we are. And it's just feeling to me that, more and more you cannot and shouldn't try to build this one size fits all AI tool. What you build are the processes for community contextualizing, and for a community or even an individual to see themselves reflected in the governance that is being built. So I think it's those processes that we're really building. A tool is just a tool, and any bugger can build a tool. But the community processes and the contextualizing processes and the background information, that's the hard piece, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah, I mean, what's at stake for us as a community is our own autonomy, actually, because the very existence of communities, because you were talking about China, or where you have a complete uniformity of everyone has to do contactless payments, all that kind of thing. So that community, that on one level, the community of exchange has been completely homogenized. So it has to be, you can only do exchange in one way in China, let's say, for sake of argument. I'm not saying it doesn't apply to everything, but on that level it does. So what are we trying to, I think it's very important for all of us here to move on to that next step of learning how to control our data, learning to control what we do, what it means to us, to take control of our meaning, and also to take control of things like time. Another thing that undermines communities is a lack of knowledge of their history. Any culture, it needs to know where it comes from, where it is, and where it's going. And this is what needs to be. So there's a very, very, very old-fashioned way, in a sense, of something that's always been there in terms of these priorities, and it's just in an AI context. And so the question is, who controls the prompt? Who controls the question and the context? And how do we, as a community, a small community, how do we take control of our own context and say, no, this is what we think we mean, and this is how we want questions to be answered, and this is how we are going to evolve.
Yeah, right. That's so on point, Steven. And that was kind of the exercise we play a little bit. I remember Vani saying, okay, but we're going to start the race pointing the car in the wrong direction. That's the best way to start. Let's see how fast we can change it. And yeah, we are building our own context. We're building our own prompt. So that's going to be a big challenge. And when guys were talking about cultural context, I was thinking on the old people. I see it happening in my country. They have fall from the system. No payment with phones. No. So also how we can think on certain aspects that Colin mentioned, inclusivity on the tools we build. Not only I'm talking about our framework, but how we challenge. One of the other challenges is how we integrate everyone, not only be concerned about the kids, and safety with AI, but also our technologies is just letting some people out of the discussion. But hey, almost 10 minutes, and it's going to be a 2-hour open discussion. Fanny?
It is. I'm just going to say, those who present, we've got quite a lot of people who came in after the presentations. So those who presented, is there any chance you could drop the link to your presentations in the chat so that people can catch up at their leisure and see what they missed? I think that would be a good way of integrating people.
Okay, I'm going to do that. And also, we are thinking on this framework we are building as a way to onboard new members to our program or community. We're going to also drop the link for the governance framework. You can log in using your Discord and understand a little bit more of what we're doing on the program.
Absolutely. And I'm also going to drop a link to the ambassador's Discord. If you're interested in the ambassador program and what we've been talking about and what we're doing, you can. This is actually the SNet Discord, but you can find us in there and connect with us. I mean, you'll find channels for the various work groups that we've talked about, AI Sandbox and Think Tank, Archives, R&D, and African Guild, and several others, governance, for instance. So if you're interested in what's been talked about here, hop in and find out a little bit more and get involved. But I do want to invite people who have arrived a little bit late. If you're catching up, is there any questions you have or any points you'd like to raise or anything that prompted you to come here that you fancied talking about? I'm learning to accept silence sometimes in these meetings, but
I was about to make the creak creak, the voice, the sound of a cricket, emulating our friend Peter that is having a good time somewhere
I know.
in Istanbul.
Tumbleweed. No, I mean, I know it's a lot to take in, and if you've just rocked up in a meeting and you're not that sure what's been said before, you might feel a little bit uncertain. But we will have the recordings of these, and we'll have some like isolated little snippets from the sessions, so they're a bit more bite-size. And we are hoping to kind of, we'll have summaries, and we're hoping to write blogs and all sorts of other things. So yeah, keep in touch with us and keep an eye out for the stuff we're going to be posting. Right, well, is there any last points that anyone would like to make? Because it kind of feels like the conversation is coming to a close.
I just want to add that this was really nice. It was really good one. It was a way for us to also to touch bases, and also great and proud for the ambassadors to be part of the BGI. We have been all over, on stage, on the hackathon, leading the unconference. So great job, Vani and everyone. Really proud of you guys, and looking forward to keep building.
Yeah, I think we've played an absolute blinder. I don't want to be self-congratulatory, but these presentations have been brilliant, and I just want to thank all the presenters for coming and giving their insights. I mean, any of the new people who've come in, is there anything that you would like to raise, like from your context, or anything that you're involved in that you would like to tell people about, or any sessions that you've got coming up, or anything you're building that you'd like to talk about?
Sorry, Vani, please repeat yourself. I lost you for a minute there.
All right, I'm just asking some of the people who came in after the presentations, Solomon, Victor, Matthew, Sheila, Paul. I'm just wondering if you have anything that you'd like to share with us, anything that you are involved in, any meetings that you've got planned, anything you're building or doing that you'd like to talk about, because we have got a few minutes. Right, well, I'd be inclined to wrap it up then. It's a little bit before the scheduled end of the session, but I think, yeah, we've come to a natural close. And yeah, thanks everybody for being here and taking part. And we will have lots of stuff about the session in all sorts of formats. So if anybody wants to hop back in to the main room for a little bit and just see what's going on, otherwise, thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to stop the recording.